He's Dieter Kurtenbach. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz. This is Locked On Warriors. We're going to recap a weekend of mixed Warriors action, some good and bad that came from that, what's to come, and so much more. Dieter, you ready, brother?
Let's make it happen, Captain.
Let's go.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Let's get right into it. What were your thoughts on the weekend? I was impressed with that Celtics game. I actually looked at the positive of that Raptors game. Show up. What is your take from that weekend of action?
Listen, you have to look at just the Celtics game and only really acknowledge the Celtics game because the Warriors full out tanked that game against the Raptors. And I can't blame them one bit. Steve Kerr said they were playing with house money on their road trip, trying to get guys across the border, knowing the situation in Toronto where they have a bunch of COVID cases. You take your best players, you put them on a plane, you put them back in the Bay Area, and you go with, I'm a big English soccer fan, big European soccer fan. You go with sort of your cup level team, right? You go with your B team, your C team, and that's what the Warriors trotted out here. Adam Silver wants to do an in-season tournament. That's what it would look like if the Golden State Warriors were part of the in-season tournament. And you can't complain about what you saw. Toronto gave him the business. There's no question about that. But you have to love Jonathan Kuminga being a force in that game. You have to wonder what Jordan Poole would have done had he been in that game. You understand that, again, this is not the top-level guys. If the top-level guys go out for the Warriors, no one is under any misconceptions that they aren't totally screwed. So it was exactly as I pretty much expected. I would have loved to have seen them play a full 48 against the Boston Celtics. That's something that I told you last week I was really hoping to see from this team, like just a thorough ass-kicking for 48 minutes, and I thought they were on pace for that against Boston. They let their foot off the gas in the third, a very antithetical third quarter for the Golden State Warriors, but they win the game. They get themselves in a situation where they don't have to risk anybody kind of going across the border, getting stuck in Canada for 10 days. Didn't really matter with Andrew Wiggins, but credit to the Warriors for handling their business right on the road trip, and we'll see what happens here. I think that given everything in the state of the NBA right now, I'm going to call the next 3 or 4 weeks just sort of a crapshoot. I don't know if I want to read in anything to what's going on until Clay's back, and perhaps even after that, given how COVID is ravaging everything. What do you think?
Well, totally agree with you. It was a full 48 minutes. I think if it would have been a much more of a blowout than close as it was at the end. I actually thought that Toronto, I had higher hopes. And again, this where the fan of me comes in, active side. But again, Kuminga, we finally saw him. Yeah, we saw him play a full game. He scored 26 points. I would like those turnovers to go down. I forgot who made the point of his rebounding numbers needing to be higher. I think he had 1 rebound total. And when you're the starting power forward, that number has to go up a little more. Again, as we'll have the rebounding discussion during the offseason about the value of it. But speaking of COVID, let's get into that. I saw you tweet something, and I'm so glad you and I are on the same page about this in terms of how important a vaccinated society is. This is controversial, and some people may not agree, especially those.
I don't understand why, but here we are.
Well, it's just this excessive libertarian trope of like my freedom, my body. But it's like, newsflash, in this case, what you're doing could affect me. And the Supreme Court sides with vaccine mandates. And, George Washington in the late 1700s, in their version of inoculation, he had his troops vaccinated. Granted, the technology was night and day from now. But, so when we see a name like Kyrie Irving, who is now going to be playing again, and, it bothers me in a lot of ways. It is ballsy, yeah.
I mean, that's the joke of it. Listen, man, I'm with you. What's going on with this new variant? We're just scratching the surface of how much it's going to go through. I think that the benefit is that it appears that, listen, we're not epidemiologists, and we're trying not to deviate this thing into a scary thought, but it does feel as if There's no question. How about I just say this? How about I say what I actually know, can say with some certainty? There's no question that this is more viral, that this is more capable of eluding vaccines that have been in the body for a long time. And credit to the Warriors for everybody who was eligible to be boosted is boosted. And I don't know if that applies to a Jordan Poole. I don't know when he was first vaccinated. We certainly know when Andrew Wiggins was first vaccinated and what he was first vaccinated with. I think.
Well, can I stop you for a second? You said that. You said J&J. How did you know that? Was that public? Like, was that your sources? And
well, he only needed. He only. Well, okay. I mean, I was told that, but also it doesn't take a tremendous amount of deduction to realize that he got one shot and was deemed fully vaccinated.
Right.
There were three options. He got one shot and he was considered fully vaccinated. So you can deduce what he had there. But of course, behind the scenes, the conversations were such. I feel comfortable saying what he was vaccinated with because it's so plainly obvious. But yes, so the issue that we're running into, and I think that this is something that I would love to see the data from across the NBA. The shame is that we're not going to see it until all of this is pretty much over, which I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And I think that there's anecdotal evidence from places where this, variant has already been spreading for a while that this could be rather quick. But J&J doesn't really stand a chance. The protein vaccine doesn't stand a chance. mRNA does, and the booster shot in particular, it takes you from. I don't have the data right in front of me right now, but I was citing this on KMBR the other night. You're going from, as I put it. And this is a little bit of fibbing with the numbers, but it's not bad. It's not half bad. And I was feeling myself a little bit because I got mine 2 weeks ago, pretty much today. So I'm like the peak of my powers or whatever. And you're going from Russell Westbrook. Well, I'm very lucky that I had the time and money
and the resources.
To go and take care of it.
My wife still doesn't have the booster because it's not available. I got mine about a month ago, and I don't think the stock is there either. Yeah, congrats.
I don't know if it's a stock thing or if it's I certainly was incapable of getting it at like the grocery store or just someplace that was easy. I mean, I had to drive from my home in Alameda up into Marin County to go get it.
Yes.
And had to go to a primary care doctor to go do it. But it was important to, me and my wife to make sure that happened just because, we stay very up to date, and it was very clear to us with, her family lives in the UK, very clear to us that Omicron was coming in a very heavy way. Nevertheless, I would love to see the data between guys who are vaccinated with J&J and guys who've been vaccinated with Moderna, the mRNA ones, Moderna or Pfizer, and then also, those who are boosted. But every member of the Warriors that was, quote, eligible to get a booster has gotten a booster. And I do think that will keep it down because you're going from, as I crudely put it on Twitter, with just 2 shots or the J&J. I mean, you're going 0% effectively, but 2 shots with no booster. You're going from Russell Westbrook beyond the arc to now with a booster, Steph Curry at the free throw line. It's certainly not Andrew Wiggins at the free throw line. So you stand yourself a better chance.
And J&J is taking a hit.
Well,
between,
well, circumstances have changed, man. That's
and look,
we're not. I'm glad I don't hold any stock in that stuff.
No, you're right. And look, we're not, like you said, we're not epidemiologists, but we are experts on media. We at least are experts when it comes to consuming information that is valid, that is factually correct. And so at a minimum, if you're going to take anything from us,
I sure hope so at this juncture.
I hope so too. And like I said, this next month and change is going to be an S-bomb show. It is the best way we can describe it, just in terms of the league staying afloat. Would you agree with my sentiments, though, that this is night and day from a year ago, just in the sense that a chance that most of these cases that the players are sitting out for, they're mild, they might be asymptomatic. It's more for the purpose of reducing spread than people actually suffering. Would you agree with that?
Couldn't agree with you more. I think you phrased it perfectly there. I mean, we have the weapons to attack this and take care of it. There is a need to be prudent and, safeguard and all that stuff. But my question for folks who have wanted to shut down the league, and a lot of this is, sort of anti-capitalist sentiment, which you get a lot of on Twitter, at least around the Bay Area. And you know what? At least they're consistent. That's not my lane. But my question to anyone who's like, we gotta shut the league down. Okay, I mean, for how long? I mean, when
Yeah.
is the threshold? I mean, we've run into that problem so many times as a society, as a league. Like, how does this all work? Go to another bubble? Does that, prevent COVID spread when you have an R naught of 6? Like, there's no, it seems knee jerk. And I would like to think that given the tools at our disposal now, that we're past the point of knee jerk. But then again, I'm getting a lot of this stuff from Twitter, so I don't know why I expected anything less than knee jerk.
Well, I think we're potentially exhausting the audience in terms of COVID talk. When we come
No
back,
question.
we're going to talk a lot more about the Warriors themselves. But first, I'm going to talk about one of Dieter's favorite munchies. And this is something I haven't tried yet. I want to. And grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar, Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat. That's all the bad stuff in food, and it's high in protein. That's the good stuff in food. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. Dieter, what is your favorite flavor? I mean, we're talking raspberry.
I'm a cookies and cream man. Cookies and cream
Yes.
through and through.
Man,
you never go wrong with the cookies and cream.
Ever. No, we are simpatico, my friend. And that's a flavor, peanut butter brownie. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. As Dieter said it best, it's a Mad Max world out there. Why go into it? Or if you're going to, might as well eat a Built Bar, right? And people are passionate about their favorite flavors. And tell Santa to throw a few Built Bars in those stockings. The kids will love it. You will love it. And if you want to cozy up with something warm, here's a holiday secret. This is my favorite part of coffee. Dip your Built Bar into a piping hot cup of cocoa. Bar melts. I know, right? I'm getting hungry just talking about this. Plus, you'll have a nice melty Built Bar. Your beverage is going to have some of that Built Bar flavor. Be sure to have a couple napkins on hand when you do that. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Again, built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Dieter, I got a comment on man. You actually like change your setting, your aesthetics, or you got that Locked On Warriors screen behind you. I got this nothing blank canvas back here. I got to fill that at some point, and I will. Like, did the wife contribute to that? Was that all you?
Oh, no. Yeah, my wife would make it look like yours.
Not
a chance, man.
Here's a question for you. Like, where are people getting their information on Klay Thompson? Shambaum fizzled. He called out he actually set a date, I remember, like a month ago, and Steve Kerr and crew came out and were like, no, we never said that. You thought it was going to happen potentially today. We're recording this on December 20th. It got postponed. Like, where are these figures coming from, and what's the latest? When do you think we're actually going to see Klay now?
I mean, I think that the latest report is the most accurate one. Listen, if I had the definitive reports on Klay Thompson, I would be providing them to all and not saving them for here. So this is merely my interpretation of what I've heard. It didn't surprise me in the least bit that they, push back from today, this week, this pre-Christmas week, that they push back on that as a concept of when he could return. And I think Joe Lacob has somewhat put himself in a corner by saying, hey, we're going to only bring him back at home, just given the way that the Warriors schedule is currently constructed. So in the next couple of weeks. So listen, as I've said since day one, I'll say it a million times over, they are going to play the cautious card. They don't need him back. They would sure love to have him back. You watch them sometimes and you can only think, man, wouldn't it be great to have Klay Thompson out there? They could sure use that.
Yes.
But they are viewing this, it was a long injury, 2 years. They are going to continue to view it through the long lens. And, a couple more weeks, especially given everything that's happening here with COVID and such, it is not a big problem whatsoever. I would circle the Sunday date against Cleveland, though who knows? I mean, if the Niners are playing, then maybe they don't do it. I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility that the Warriors actually start him on the road. I know that they want that big moment, that they want that thing, but again, just we don't know who's going to be allowed in arenas and all this stuff. I mean, at a certain point, he's ready to go, and they have 1 out of every 5 games at home over the next couple of weeks. They might have to back off on that, but there is clearly no definitive source of information, and I think that the Warriors don't have some date circled that they're keeping under lock and key. I think it's fluid because, of course, it's fluid, and Clay needs to get his conditioning up because I think what's been proven over the last couple of weeks is they can't just toss him in there for 5, 7, 10 minutes and think that that's going to then be able to work him up. They need to be able to get him out there that he can play 20 minutes from day one, and that is a big condition. I mean, think about just getting into shape right now, just in general. Now imagine that you haven't been able to do very much over the last 2 years. Clay is in great shape. You see him running around, all that stuff, but the pace of the NBA game, I mean, that is the hardest level on any treadmill, hardest level on any Stairmaster. That is immediate, drenched buckets of sweat level of exertion, and they need to make sure that he can handle it. So the longer they can go to get his cardio right, the better chance he has of making an immediate impact, and then helping the Warriors, not only win games now, but building up to win even more and more games down the stretch. And by the way, I know that there's kind of the flip side of this, where they say, okay, well, the sooner you get them in there, the more you know what you do or do not have. I think there's a balance to be struck, but we do have to also bring in, the concept, the contingency here that he might not be the same. Now, that's totally antithetical to everything that I've heard. Every person that's seen him is raving, and they're not, these are not hyperbolic people. That's my job, not theirs. And they're the ones who are going completely overboard, I think, with some of the praise. But, if it doesn't pan out, there is something to be said for the Warriors need to get the ideal peak version of whatever that is at this juncture of Klay Thompson as soon as possible. They think that they can get to that peak level by keeping him sidelined for longer, so that when he comes in, they have a clearer understanding of what he can and cannot do, as opposed to figuring it out on the fly in NBA games. Because if he is not the same player, then the Warriors probably do have to make a move or two at the trade deadline. And if he is the same player, then they just stand pat or make a move that's readily available to them. That's, an obvious move for them to make, maybe buyout market, something like that. There's a 5% chance. It's terrible that I'm throwing a percentage on it because who the hell knows, but
right.
I don't think that that's the case whatsoever. I've heard nothing but good things from people who are not, mouthpieces, people who will call it straight. That's why I call them. But you do have to keep that in the back of your head, and I think the Warriors are keeping that in the back of their head too. They'd rather have him at a higher level coming in, so that there's not as much time in game to have to figure stuff out. So I can't blame him. I think it's the right strategy. It's just going to prove really tricky here, because the first 2 weeks of the season. They do have a very long homestand, starting with the Detroit game the 3rd week of January, where they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games at home in a row. That's looking like maybe the Klay Thompson. That's looking like the Klay Thompson trip at the very latest.
Ideal.
So,
and you did bring up a great. Well, you brought up 2 points that stuck out to me especially. One is that his comeback is unprecedented. I don't think we've seen a player have a blown ACL, on the verge of coming back, blown Achilles, out for 2+ years, and then now trying to come back and regain form. We really don't know. I've heard the same things you have, that he's looking amazing, but until we see it on the court, there's no certainty. And then there's that whole trade deadline prospect. I did not think about that, in the sense that if Klay's not himself, the Warriors probably should make a move, and maybe that is playing into their minds in terms of bringing him back. But that is fascinating. By the way, when we come back, I want to mention something about Andre Igoudala. He tweeted something interesting, and that raised awareness of something else to me, and I'll definitely bring that up when we come back. First, we're going to talk about one of the longtime sponsors of this program, BetOnline. I'm still recovering from that Pacers game where I bet the house with BetOnline.ag. But they have you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football season continues the march of the playoffs, BetOnline remains your #1 spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On. That is Locked On to receive your 50% welcome bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. That's betonline.ag, where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. So over the weekend, Andre Igoudala is the king of cryptic abstract tweets. Half the time you have no idea what he's actually saying or what he means when he's tweeting. And he tweeted something about leaks. How it was, I can't remember what he said verbatim. Expressing disdain toward people who leak information to the media and so forth. I was curious to know what he was referring to, and I wanted to ask you, I guess, has any players or athletes ever blocked you? Surprisingly, I did not realize until that tweet Andre blocked me. I've never said a single bad thing about him. I've nothing but love to him, and I found out I was blocked. I don't know if I did make a reply to a tweet one time if it actually made sense instead of being cryptic. Maybe it's that, I don't know. But regardless, Andre, I'm sorry if I offended you. Unblock me, please. And Peter, what do you think about that tweet? It was really weird.
No, Andre, that's what Andre does, and I have a feeling as if it is related to the Kyrie Irving situation. Andre feels a kinship with Kyrie in a lot of ways because he doesn't think the media gives Kyrie. Well, maybe. Yeah, Andre doesn't block me. I very much enjoy my conversations with Andre. Andre has always been a great, back in the ability to actually go up and talk to a human being around a locker room or in the tunnel outside a locker room or, just at any point during the day because, we weren't deemed persona non grata by the league. Andre was a great resource for insight and information, a basketball genius through and through on a team with so many of them. But Andre was one who he would mess with me a lot, but I don't know. I guess I get messed with a lot. So I was able to handle it. And he was always great in terms of he'd test. He'd understand if you had the medal or not. I guess I passed and was fantastic at being blunt in a time when so many people are in fact cryptic. So I find his online persona and his human persona, his actual personality, to be rather conflicting. He's a very sharp guy. He likes messing with people. But I would venture if I had to guess, it would be in relation to Kyrie and that scenario, because there's nothing in particular that I can think of regarding the Golden State Warriors that are that's of any level of severity. Like I don't understand what the conflict would be.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking of was that the Andrew Wiggins news came out where he's in health and safety protocols, and I was thinking, did someone
that's not even a leak. That was literally on the NBA's injury report. Like no one leaked it. It was available to anybody at 5:00 that night. That was the last thing.
That explains it, and that could coincide with him blocking me because I have not been shy about expressing my feelings on Kyrie. I really didn't know Andre and him were friends.
I don't know if they're particularly friends, but Andre thinks the world of Kyrie's talent, and
yes, I've seen that. Yeah,
and he does not. From what I've never had a one-on-one conversation with him about this, so this is my interpretation of other things that he said on the matter. He doesn't think that Kyrie has gotten a fair shake in his situation. Andre is very much as we heard during sort of the Wiggins saga, that 3 or 4 day saga with Andrew Wiggins in the preseason. I do firmly believe that he believes that it's a personal choice in regards to the vaccination, especially with the level of testing that the NBA does or did, and now they're doing again. And so, but yeah, Andre's good at stuff like that. You heard him. I think it was the NBC Sports Bay Area interview after the game against Boston, if I remember correctly. And he was just kind of being weird about it, just saying kind of weird stuff. And that's what Andre does. He very much enjoys the separation of the media and the players. And you got to go through a couple of walls to get anything from them. But when you do, it's absolutely incredible. So the only guy who I'm blocked by, that at least I'm cognizant or aware of, is Ben Roethlisberger. But Ben Roethlisberger, I think, had a list somewhere. He blocked like everybody ever. You might be blocked by Ben Roethlisberger. So I don't actually. I know that I didn't do anything, even though I don't think he's very good at this. He clearly just had a list of media and just had some company just knock them all out. But I've been, one of my big things is, like I'm very harsh on some people like Jimmy Garoppolo and stuff like that. Like I make sure that I'm there and accountable. And if I'm tweeting it out, like I'm fully aware that this is going out to everybody. Like there's no pot shots or anything like that. Like if I'm calling you out, I'm calling you out on principles. And it's anything that I would say on Twitter is something I would say to that person's face. And 9 times out of 10, anything that I would say, 100 times out of 100, anything I'd say on a podcast, anything that I write in a column, I'd say to their face. I'd read the column right aloud to them. If, that's how I feel.
Right.
And they can certainly contend, and I'd be happy to have that conversation. I've been proven wrong before, is my opinion. I think they're very well sourced and well versed, and the world changes. Nothing is static. And listen, you're putting yourself out there as a professional athlete. You are a performer.
Exact same.
So I'm allowed to critique your performance, and I try to steer away from personal stuff. In particular, I found last year's, sorry to ramble about this, but I do want to make one quick point here, and then I'll shut the hell up for the rest of the episode. Last year, I found there to be a lot of wholly unfair criticisms of James Wiseman. And it was... I've made it a principle, just as somebody who covered high school, someone who covered colleges for a long time and now covers almost exclusively pros, that I do not criticize the work ethic, the habits, the anything of anyone who can't legally have a beer. Like that's just so until you turn 21, I'm not going to make a judgment on you, because I still suck, but I really sucked until I was like 23, 24. And dude, I have empathy for me. Yeah, I mean, and listen, again, I still suck. So like it's not all gone. But I have a tremendous amount of empathy even with the money. And I usually often say, with like a guy like Garoppolo, like he's making $25 million and is the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. Why do we feel the need to baby him when he doesn't play well? But like I'm sure he'll be fine. He's aware. But with a guy like James Wiseman, like it's a very wait and see approach for me, because especially with him, he was just thrust into a situation that was so peculiar and so difficult inherently to get a hold of, get a grasp on, that I just need a couple more years to see if this kid's like a quote unquote bust or not. As of right now, just with the minimal experience that he had coming out of Memphis, 3 games, one of them against a real opponent, with the pandemic at its height, San Francisco way they handled the pandemic as opposed to other places. Just keep your hands off, man. He's not even 21 years old. There's no such thing as a finished product before you're 21. So, and even then, we should still judge on the curve. And we've seen the great work that like a Jordan Poole can do as he sort of transitioned from just a younger player into now, becoming a full-blown, I have a condo adult, like this, as opposed to just some kid who showed up and is trying to, keep in the league. So that's just where I stand. But again, I'm very large. My opinions are large. So the physical, the metaphysical, If anyone has any issues with anything that I've ever said ever, that's part of the gig. Talk about it. Let's hash it out. And I very rarely come from a place of emotion, and so respect it or not, me and Clay have had it out a couple of times about stuff that I've said and written. But that's the thing. If you stand up and be accountable for what you say, I don't know if the respect is there, but at least I'm not a coward, so I can hold my head high on that one.
But I've been in a locker room when another media member has been yelled at. It's an interesting experience. It happens to a lot of people, but I love that. I totally respect that approach, because to me, really adults until like our mid-20s, in all honesty, that's my perspective opinion on it.
Yeah.
But at least 2021, no, I support that 100%. Before we go, first of all, I want to do a shameless plug of the podcast I host, the Rick Barry Show, predecessor from the San Jose Mercury News, Skip Bayless.
That's
a
very early predecessor.
Yes, it was. But yes, because that's when I was working at KMBR. I used to book him on with and then as a guest, as a fill-in host, and then he was telling us stories about how I was in New York filling in, and ESPN sends you a car. Never saw him again after that. But so we had him on, and that was a delight. So if you ever want to listen to that, check it out. And then the Warriors are playing the Sacramento Kings tonight, favored by 12 and a half. What are your thoughts on that? And just any opinion on?
Yeah, I would probably sit that one out in the betting perspective, just because who the hell knows? By the way, you have to take a couple of breaks. I know that you're trying to win it all back in one fell swoop. I would take all that money if you had anything earmarked for betting between now and New Year's Day, and I would go buy yourself something very nice. Just or not, whatever your unit is. Just don't bet it on any sports right now. No one knows what the hell is going on. It's chaos out there. Just lay low, enjoy the game. Let's see what happens.
It is. See, and you know what a lot of people don't know, that the are some of the most brilliant minds. It's crazy. But anyways, Dieter, it's always a pleasure, man. You can follow Dieter on Twitter at Dieter. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow, and this program's on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Dieter, you'll be hosting tomorrow. Anything you want to promote All good. Okay.
Sorry, what was it? You broke up a little bit there. My bad.
Sorry, my internet's totally shaky today. This is what happens when I live in San Ramon. I was just curious, on tomorrow's show, you're going to be hosting solo. Anything you want to preview for what's to come?
No, we'll find out what happens in this Kings game, and we'll break it all down, and then we'll look forward to this final warm-up game against Memphis. That's a contest that I think has more juice than maybe Warriors fans are initially giving it credit for. So just a lot to manage, and we'll keep our heads on a swivel, as we all have to do over these next couple of weeks.
Thanks for being Locked On Warriors, your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Thank you very much, Dub Nation. And Dieter will be on the show tomorrow, and we'll be doing this every day.